Greetings to one and all, it's your old buddy Jay here, coming at you with another episode of Countermeasures Game Changer. Now, everybody knows that I love zombies. So when it comes to games that have any zombies in it, obviously I absolutely have to play it and spend all my time doing it. And unfortunately, I've been playing Dying Light 2. Now, I did really enjoy Dying Light 1. I thought that one was very interesting. The basic premise behind that game was that there'd been a virus, people had got sick, there was a city kind of, protected and on all sides, but there were zombies getting in, and you were a messenger that had to run across the city, kind of delivering things from one person to another, avoiding zombies and instant death. And that had a really interesting mechanic where you could play the whole game going through the daytime and avoid the night, but you got much better XP and much more interesting assets and things to use in your day-to-day sort of fighting against the zombies if you traveled at night, but they were much more ferocious. So it was a very interesting kind of game that sort of took the kind of zombie tropes and just sort of made them a little bit more kind of, a little bit more engaging, and I quite like that. So it's a first-person game, and I thought it was quite good. Now, I did feel like that game went on for too long. It went on for way too long. So when I eventually finished it, I'll be honest with you, I was completely bored of it, and then just didn't think of anything about Dying Light for quite a long time. But then they announced after 6 years that Dying Light 2 was coming out. So that's what this is. I'm just going to give you a little breakdown of the game itself. So Dying Light 2 Stay Human is a 2022 action role-playing game developed and published by Techland. It's the sequel to Dying Light, which came out in 2015. And this game was released in 2022, and it was February the 4th. It came out on Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and apparently there's a Nintendo Switch version, which is in development. So, so all platforms, basically. Now, I started off playing this game, and suddenly all of the things that bothered me about the first game just came flooding back. Firstly, I'll tell you the best thing about this game, and the best thing about the last game, is that it has some really, really good parkour in it. So when you're running up buildings and jumping across gaps, or there's loads of zombies chasing you, and you can run up walls and do all this kind of interesting stuff in terms of grabbing ledges. It's just really intuitive and really fun. And with this one, they kind of push that a little bit further. They take that, you've got a grappling hook that you can implement at times, which helps you sort of navigate through these cool spaces. And I think that's a really very interesting game. I was always a big fan of Mirror's Edge back in the day, which was one of the first parkour games to come out, and that was only a kind of short campaign of like 4 or 5 hours, and it was just right. I didn't want to play too much of it, but it was good fun while it lasted. And with this game, I just feel that that is something that is fun, but everything else that surrounds that mechanic is just so boring. It's just so boring. It's the same story as the previous one, really, which is that you're a messenger just running around the city. So it's more of the same. And if you're a fan of the first one, obviously they want to service that. So they've done more of the same. And they have developed lots of other things. So there's new weapons and things like that. But it's just this kind of approach to gameplay has just been done and dusted so many times. It's just not interesting anymore. I think I'm coming off the back of playing Far Cry 5 and Far Cry 6, which I did back to back, and I did a lot of busy work. So a lot of kind of going around the map and collecting things and picking stuff up, and all things that were kind of building towards me kind of becoming a better character. But ultimately they didn't, because I was collecting all of these different herbs and things like that. I hardly used any of them. But when you're playing the game, you're like, I might need these. I don't know if I do need them, but I might need these. So I'm going to try and hoard as much of this as I can. And something that this game does very well is you open the door to a room or something, and there's like 50 things to collect, and it's all random stuff that you can pick up, like bits that apply to your weapons, or ways to craft kind of medical supplies and things like that. But you don't need all of it. But the compulsion that I have as the way I play is that I want to collect as much as possible, and I blame The Last of for that, because that game, you can't progress very far into that game unless you're doing that constantly. With this game, it doesn't really matter, and yet I feel the urge to do it. So in a way, it spoils my gameplay. It spoils the flow of what this game is meant to be, which is you're meant to be finding these interesting set pieces and discovering interesting characters, and actually none of that really happens because the characters aren't that interesting. They've got a couple of A-list celebrities who are doing the voiceover. I think like Rosario Dawson is one of them, and there's a few other kind of B-list actors that have been involved with it as well, which seem to be doing fine, and they all put in a good performance, but they're just painting by numbers with the way this is written. The writing is not great, and also the side quests are not interesting. Now, I think about The Witcher 3, that had its own story going on, but if you went off piste and started following a little side story, that could take you on a 2 or 3 hour journey that was sometimes more interesting than the campaign. Whereas with this one, what I'm finding is there's a moment where Rosario Dawson slaps you in the face and tells you to go and get a pair of shoes after you've just done all these kind of epic set piece moments with zombies and being trapped underground and not being able to breathe and all this kind of stuff. And so there's a lot of that kind of busy work that I mentioned before in this game, and it feels like it's completely shoehorned in, and it ruins the pacing for me. And I have to talk about the length of it. This game is just too long. It's like, it's like about 50 hours, I think, by the time it's completely wrapped. And that's not even including what they initially said when they did one of their press releases about like 3 or 4 months ago. They said that if you wanted to play the entirety of everything that you can do in this game, if you do all of the side quests and you get all of the collectibles and you do all of this stuff and you do the main story and that they reckon there was nearly 500 hours, and that was a positive thing. Now, I know people want to get a lot out of these games, but I go to Call of Duty for a different reason than why I come to this. I go to Call of Duty because I want to play that for 500 hours, because that game, the repetition of the multiplayer, is something that I find satisfying. A lot of people find satisfying, and it's no mistake that is one of the most popular games of all time, one of the most popular franchises of all time, and every year it's the best-selling game. Techland trying to apply that to this, it just doesn't work, and nobody wants to play that. This kind of game I want to play as a single player, just going through the story and doing it. But if I feel like I'm missing out on 450 hours worth of content, when actually all it is just get another pair of shoes or collect this scarf for a singer, I just feel like it's completely and utterly unnecessary. Take the time that you spent doing that 450 hours and do some really cool free DLC and download those stories like 8 and 10 hours and make them really solid, and you will get so much more support from the community. So it's just overwhelming, and I just feel like for that reason I haven't finished it. I'm not going back to it now. I spent about 15 hours into it. I'm done, and I don't really feel like anybody should spend longer in this game because the story's just so dragged out. It's like everything's just, there's conversation after conversation of things. You're trying to progress your story and you're just getting stuck by these NPCs telling you their stories about their history, and it's just all filler. And I just really dislike that, especially in a time when I don't have that much time these days. So when I do want to play a game, I want to play for like an hour, 2 hours. I want to progress in that game, feel like I've achieved something, and go to bed. That's what I want to do. That's how I'm using my game time at the moment. When I'm playing this, I just feel like I'm just grinding and running on a hamster wheel. I just feel like it's not working for me, and I feel that who is the audience for this if not me? I love zombies, I love open world stuff, I love first person things, I love survival horror. If it's not me, then who is it? It's the unemployed? Is it people that are on furlough that are just sitting around and they have 500 hours to kill? I don't think so either. And to release it in February when there are so many other good games coming out, like Horizon Forbidden West and Elden Ring, those games are epic. And if you want to put 500 hours into something, put it into Elden Ring. I hear that the full gameplay from start to finish to kind of pretty much do 90% or majority of that game is about 87 hours, which seems massive to me, but when that seems achievable, and it seems like something that I might want to spend that time in. Not this. This is just filler. This is the low budget Netflix TV show that no one wants to watch, but when you're working late and you just just want to stick something on in the background. That's it. And I think with so many other good things coming out and have come out over the last kind of sort of 4 or 5 months that are slowly sort of filling up my shelf, I'm starting to get through. This is not one that I'm going to go back and finish. I feel like I'm in a position to talk about it. I know some people are like, you have to complete the game before you can do a full review. Well, I can tell you if it's any good in the first 3 or 4 hours, just based on what the design of it looks like, what the mechanics, whether they work, and all of those kind of things. And I've spent more time with this one, and I feel that like I do have a comprehensive knowledge of these games, having played so many similar games to it. And I think that is a detriment to this game, because it's so similar to other games that have done things much better. I mean, Dead Island does not take itself seriously in any way, and it's fun. This game takes itself well too seriously, so it doesn't, and it's not realistic enough. I mean, as you can see, like this guy, he's got like a pulse that tells you where things are, and it's just not. I know it's a video game, but if you're going to do realism, do realism. I mean, like The Last of Us, everything in your backpack was what you had to survive. You didn't have any extra things going on. You didn't have a machine gun hidden in your bag that you could just pop out. Everything you were carrying was yours. Whereas with this, you like look in your inventory and you're carrying like 5 bats and a hammer and a zombie's head and like 50 beehives, and it's just like, I don't know, you've got to go one way or the other. And it's in not having those interesting weapons that like Dead Island does, where you can kind of make different novelty chainsaws to kill the bad guys in an interesting way. This doesn't have any of that because it's trying to be too realistic, but it doesn't do either well. So in not committing to one or the other, it doesn't doesn't achieve what it sets out to do, which I just think is really, really disappointing. I do also have to say that this is one of the first zombie games I've ever played where the zombies take a massive back seat. I don't really see that they are the focus of this game. The focus of this game, slight spoilers, is that you are infected and you have to stay human. That's the name of the game. It's dead, dying light, stay human. It's all about you essentially just trying to survive because you are infected. Now, that is an interesting concept, but that is a different game. The zombies, they just take a back seat, and I just feel like it's a shame. They could have done something much more interesting with them. Instead, they're just kind of background filler, while the majority of the time you're dealing with survivors, and they're all assholes. So, the people you're interacting with, the NPCs, even the ones that are meant to be likable, you just feel like it's just not engaging. It doesn't hit the right tone of voice, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't gel for some reason. And I feel that like all the good graphics in the world are not going to solve a really terrible story and bad writing. And unfortunately, this game suffers from both of those, and the pacing's all over the place. I just don't even want to get into that. So yeah, from a design point of view, does it look good? Yeah, it looks all right. From a mechanics kind of point of view, does it work? It works, but it feels like PS3. You feel those mechanics and everything that you're doing still feel a little bit floaty in places. Is it pushing pushing the hardware of what modern games can do? Possibly not. I mean, the textures and everything look really good, but it's nothing innovative here. There's no change, and I feel that's where it's completely fallen on its face. Is they haven't done anything. It needed something a little bit different, a little bit extra, and it doesn't have that. And I feel that like it fails because of that. Because, like I said, it couldn't commit to being either kind of comical or serious or real world, and it doesn't have any hook that's any different than anything else. I mean, I could just do a screen grab right now, and I could be playing Far Cry. Flashbacks. I don't want to be, but I could be, and I feel that tells you everything you need to know about this game and many games coming out that are similar to it, which is it's just cookie cutter, and I think it's a shame. Anyway, that said, I've got to give it a score, and I am going to give this 3 out of 10. I just don't really feel like they've achieved what they set out to do. For all of the interesting kind of set pieces and things that they've kind of weaved into this, I don't really feel like they've pushed it as far as they could have done. I think that's a little bit of a shame. I like the parkour. The graphics, like I said, look fine. The design of it's kind of whatever, it's fine. But that's the problem, is it's fine. And I think I was looking for something else. So it has disappointed me. And the fact that it took 6 years for Techland to bring this out is just like, well, it's nearly 7 years, I guess. It's just like a massive shame. And I feel like they could have spent their time just really honing down a kind of tight 20 or 30 hour game. It could have been amazing. But instead, they just kind of gave us this kind of bloated monster, and it is just what you'd expect it to be. So, you know, if you want to go through sort of run of the mill and you've got 500 hours to kill, then yeah, go for it. But I personally, I don't want to do that. There are better things out there. So that's my review of Dying Light 2 Stay Human. Now, all that's left to say is be good, stay safe, and be kind to one another. Cheers.